Max Verstappen has reportedly made a demand so extreme, it could force Red Bull into the biggest decision of its modern era. One rumor claims he wants $100 million per year to stay, while another report says Mercedes rejected the conditions connected to a possible move. But the real shock is not the money. It is the power behind it. There is no confirmed ultimatum, no verified list of demands, and no official proof that Verstappen has ordered Red Bull to change everything. Yet if even part of these reports is true, Red Bull is trapped. Agree, and the team may hand Verstappen unprecedented control over its future. Refuse, and it could lose the driver who defines its championship identity. And the most important demand may be the one nobody has officially revealed. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this reported demand is creating so much pressure, you have to look beyond the number itself. $100 million per year is not just a salary. It is leverage. It is a message about value. And it is a test of how far Red Bull is willing to go to keep the most important driver in its entire project. But there is a crucial detail. The available source describes this as a rumor. It does not include a verified contract. It does not include a direct quote from Verstappen. And it does not include an official list of conditions delivered to Red Bull. That means the headline is much clearer than the evidence. Still, the rumor matters. Because in Formula One, the size of a reported demand can reveal the level of pressure surrounding a driver's future. And Verstappen is not negotiating from a normal position. He is not trying to convince Red Bull that he belongs. He has already proved his value. The real question is whether Red Bull can convince him that staying is still the best option. That changes everything. Most drivers worry about whether a team wants them. Verstappen can ask whether the team still deserves him. That is the power behind the reported figure. Not simply the money. The ability to force Red Bull to prove its future. Because a massive salary cannot guarantee a fast car. It cannot guarantee technical stability. It cannot guarantee that the right engineers remain in place. And it cannot guarantee that Red Bull will understand the next major shift in Formula One better than its rivals. That is why the deepest demand may not be financial at all. It may be certainty. Certainty that the car can keep improving. Certainty that the team can react when problems appear. Certainty that Red Bull is still building forward, rather than depending on what worked before. Again, those specific demands are not confirmed in the source. But they explain why the reported salary alone does not tell the full story. Imagine being offered an enormous amount of money to remain inside a company that may no longer give you the tools to succeed. The money is real. The risk is real too. And at Verstappen's level, success is not measured by comfort. It is measured by championship opportunities. That is what makes time so important. A Formula One driver does not have endless seasons at the absolute peak. Every year matters. Every regulation change matters. Every technical direction matters. One poor cycle can cost more than money can ever replace. That is why Red Bull's decision would have to go far beyond the contract. The team would need to answer a harder question. What exactly is Verstappen being asked to believe in? The current car? The next car? The engineers? The leadership? The long-term plan? If even one of those areas feels uncertain, the reported $100 million begins to look less like a reward and more like compensation for risk. And that is dangerous. Because when a team starts paying a driver to tolerate uncertainty, the relationship has already changed. The driver is no longer simply committed. He is evaluating. He is measuring. He is comparing. And every difficult weekend becomes part of the decision. One weak upgrade becomes evidence. One internal disagreement becomes evidence. One rival step forward becomes evidence. That is how pressure grows. Not through one dramatic moment. Through a pattern. And once a championship driver sees a pattern, loyalty becomes much more complicated. Verstappen and Red Bull have built enormous success together. That history matters. It creates trust. It creates familiarity. It creates the confidence that both sides know how to win. But history can also hide danger. A team can begin believing that the old formula will always work. A driver can begin wondering whether the team is reacting fast enough. And both sides can remain publicly calm while private doubts become more serious. That is why the next part of the story matters. The source also points to reporting that Mercedes rejected the conditions linked to a possible move. But even that claim comes with missing information. There is no complete offer. No confirmed negotiation document. No full explanation of what was rejected. And no proof that the reported salary was the only issue. A team can reject the timing. It can reject the length of a contract. It can reject the structure of the agreement. It can reject the amount of control being requested. Or it can simply decide that the total risk is too high. Those are very different situations. But once the public hears that Mercedes supposedly turned Verstappen down, the mystery becomes more powerful. People begin imagining hidden conditions, technical demands, leadership demands, guarantees, special control. None of those are confirmed in the available source. But the lack of detail creates the perfect environment for speculation. And speculation becomes especially dangerous when the driver involved is Verstappen. Because everyone already knows how valuable he is. That makes almost any extreme claim sound possible. A record salary. A demand for more influence. A request for stronger technical control. A threat to leave. The name alone gives the rumor weight. But Red Bull cannot react to a rumor like an ordinary team. It has more to lose. If Verstappen walks away, Red Bull does not only lose speed. It loses the center of the project. It loses the driver around whom strategy, development, pressure, and public identity have been built. That would affect everyone. The engineers, the sponsors, the leadership, the replacement driver, and the confidence of every rival team watching from the outside. That is why saying no could be more expensive than saying yes. But saying yes creates another danger. If Red Bull agrees to every condition, it risks making one driver more powerful than the structure around him. And once that happens, future negotiations become harder. Every disagreement carries more weight. Every threat of departure becomes more believable. Every internal decision starts with the same fear. Do not lose Verstappen. That fear can protect the relationship. It can also weaken the team. Because championship organizations cannot make every decision around one person's departure risk. They need clarity. They need authority. They need people who can challenge each other without turning every disagreement into a crisis. That is where Red Bull's problem becomes almost impossible. It must make Verstappen feel essential without making the team feel dependent. It must prove that it listens without surrendering every decision. It must show urgency without creating panic. And it must protect the future without destroying the balance that built the past. That is a far bigger challenge than agreeing on a salary. Because money can be written on paper. Trust cannot. And if Verstappen's real concern is trust, then Red Bull is not negotiating over a number. It is negotiating over belief. Belief in the car. Belief in the people. Belief in the direction. And belief that staying will not cost him the years he can never get back. That is why the reported demand feels so extreme. Not only because $100 million is an enormous figure. Because it may represent the price of asking Verstappen to continue carrying uncertainty. And Red Bull now has to decide whether it can remove that uncertainty, or only pay him to live with it. And this is where the rumor becomes a battle over control. Because if the reported salary is only the visible part of the negotiation, then Red Bull may be dealing with something much bigger than money. It may be dealing with the question of who shapes the future of the team. The available source does not confirm that Verstappen has demanded control over technical decisions. It does not confirm that he wants specific engineers replaced. It does not confirm that he has asked for special authority inside Red Bull. But the suggestion that Mercedes rejected the conditions linked to a possible move raises an important possibility. The total package may have involved more than salary. That does not mean hidden demands are proven. It means the missing details matter. Because Formula One contracts at the highest level are rarely simple. The public sees a driver, a salary, and a number of years. The real agreement can involve much more. Performance clauses, exit conditions, commercial commitments, personal staff, future guarantees, and protections if the team falls below expectations. The source does not reveal whether any of those were part of Verstappen's reported demands. But it shows why the $100 million figure may not tell the full story. A driver at Verstappen's level would not only ask what Red Bull can pay, he would ask what Red Bull can promise. And more importantly, what Red Bull can prove. That is where the tension becomes dangerous. Because promises are easy before the season begins. Every team believes the next car will be better. Every technical department believes the next upgrade will improve performance. Every leader believes the current problems can be solved. But Formula One does not reward belief. It rewards results. And Verstappen would know that better than anyone. He would not need another speech about ambition. He would need evidence that Red Bull still has the people, the structure, and the technical direction required to fight at the front. That is not something a contract can create overnight. It takes months, sometimes years, and that creates a serious timing problem. Red Bull may need time to rebuild confidence. Verstappen may not want to spend another season waiting. That difference could become the center of the entire negotiation. Imagine standing in an airport while your flight is repeatedly delayed. At first, you believe the next announcement. Then another delay appears. Then another. Eventually, the issue is no longer the waiting itself. It is whether you believe the flight will leave at all. That is the kind of doubt Red Bull cannot allow to grow. Because once Verstappen begins questioning the future, every setback becomes part of a larger pattern. One week race is not just one week race. It becomes evidence that the car is moving in the wrong direction. One delayed upgrade is not just a delay. It becomes evidence that the team is reacting too slowly. One rival improvement is not just progress from another team. It becomes evidence that staying may carry greater risk than leaving. That is how a contract negotiation turns into a decision about trust. And trust is much harder to restore than speed. A team can find lap time through development. A team can find reliability through testing. A team can improve strategy through better preparation. But once a driver believes the organization no longer understands the problem, every new promise is judged more harshly. That is where Red Bull would face the most uncomfortable question of all. What exactly would it have to change to make Verstappen believe again? The source does not provide that answer. There is no verified list. No confirmed demand for a new technical leader. No official request for a different car philosophy. No proven order to reorganize the team. But if the pressure is real, then Red Bull would have to do more than offer reassurance. It would have to show movement. Visible movement. The car would need to respond. The upgrades would need to work. The communication would need to become clearer. And the leadership would need to look stable. That is where a reported demand can become a test. Not a test of whether Red Bull can afford Verstappen. A test of whether Red Bull can still convince him. Those are very different things. Affording a driver is financial. Convincing a driver is competitive. And competitive belief is fragile. A driver may be fully committed on Monday. Then a difficult race changes the mood. A rival introduces a major improvement. A technical problem returns. A private conversation becomes more serious. By Friday, the future may look different. That is why teams protect these discussions so carefully. Once uncertainty becomes public, it creates pressure inside the garage. Engineers begin wondering whether the driver will still be there. Sponsors begin asking questions. Other drivers begin studying the situation. And rival teams start positioning themselves. Even if no move is close, the possibility begins changing behavior. That is the hidden power of a rumor. It forces everyone to prepare for something that may never happen. And Red Bull would have more reason than anyone to take it seriously. Because Verstappen is not simply part of the team. He is connected to almost every major expectation around it. The car is judged through his results. The strategy is judged through his chances. The team's future is judged through whether he still believes in it. That creates enormous dependence. And dependence creates leverage. If Red Bull believes losing Verstappen would damage the entire project, then even an unconfirmed demand becomes powerful. The team may feel pressure to agree before alternatives appear. But the higher the reported demands become, the fewer alternatives Verstappen may have too. That is the contradiction at the heart of the story. A $100 million salary makes him look almost impossible to replace. It can also make him almost impossible to sign. A demand for more influence may protect his competitive future. It may also make another team worry about internal balance. A long-term guarantee may give him security. It may also make a team fear losing flexibility. Every advantage has a cost. And that means Red Bull is not the only side taking a risk. Verstappen would be taking one too. If he pushes too hard, he may reduce the number of teams willing to meet his conditions. If he accepts too little, he may remain inside a project he no longer fully trusts. If he leaves too early, Red Bull may recover without him. If he stays too long, another opportunity may disappear. That is why the decision would be so difficult. There is no risk-free option. Only different kinds of risk. And this is where the Mercedes report becomes especially important. According to the source, Mercedes supposedly turned down Verstappen over his contract demands. But the material does not explain whether that was a final rejection, an early disagreement, or simply a report based on incomplete information. That missing context changes the meaning. A team can reject the first proposal and continue talking. A team can step away because the timing is wrong. A team can decide the package is too disruptive, even if the driver remains attractive. None of that proves Verstappen asked for anything unreasonable.